Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for spending time and coming over to this channel. I appreciate it. Let me start off with some macro thoughts. Holger, history in one chart. Today, this is yesterday, Dow Jones plummeted 1,089 points at one point, the biggest intraday drop ever. Taleb, for people in markets now discovering the notion of tail risk, he's put up very kindly a link to his analytics, and then he tweets again, you can only temporarily fool a market, and the Latin is mercatus semper terminus sursum victoris, and my Latin common entrance is not of that standard, I'm afraid. Nanex, that's Eric Hunsader, this is last evening, this is not yesterday evening but the evening before. Red in VIX plus 10%, purple China A50 futures minus 8%, and we saw a similar drawdown today. Until we have some sign that China and the emerging markets aren't being sucked into some vortex from which they can't recover, it is unlikely this sell-off will stem. Home thoughts, it's enough for me to be sure that you and I exist at this moment. He's fabulous, I think, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And then I like this tweet from J Something Music. What a night. Damn, I love this city. Nairobi, Kenya, big hug. And I like the photograph. We filmed our helicopter ride to Mount Ololokwe for breakfast. This was very kindly arranged by Sirikoi Lodge in Tropica, Kenya. And I'll also post the photograph I took of the view from the top of Ololokwe Mountain. I like this photograph, Michael Jordan doing the jump man pose for Nike Air Jordan. That was 1985, would you believe? China Xinhua News is saying South Korea and the DPRK agreed to lift military alert after marathon emergency talks. The Economist tweeted, North Korea pulls its scary face, and indeed it is scary. And then I go back to the images of the banks of those loudspeakers that you find on the border. And I was thinking to myself, I'd be pretty annoyed if that was coming across the border. And it took me back, of course, to September 2012. One of the defining bifurcations of the future will be the conflict between information masters and information victims. The information warfare will not be couched in the rationale of geopolitics, the author suggests, but will be spawned, like any Hollywood drama, out of raw emotions, hatred, jealousy, and greed. Emotions rather than strategy will set the terms of information warfare struggles. The West and Japan are snubbing China's parade, but Putin and North Korean official will be standing next to Xi, and Putin at the parade along central Beijing's Tiananmen Square will be the leaders from countries that generally have close ties with China, including Sudan President Omar Hassan al-Bashir and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Putin, Maduro, all in the crosshairs of the oil and currency warfare specialist Barack Obama. Tanks rumbled through Beijing and fighter jets flew overhead during a weekend rehearsal. This can only send a worrying message to China's neighbors, a senior Western diplomat said on condition of anonymity. My conclusions are, I never thought the US could embark on a twin pivot strategy, and I therefore stand corrected. And also this morning I tweeted POTUS as an oil and currency warfare specialist. The Chinese have been as blindsided as was Vladimir. International markets, Chinese stocks slump again in absence of government support. Holger tweeted a graph, and you can see it's now at 8-month lows. Sank 7% today, lowest level since December, with panic selling intensifying after the Shanghai Composite Index crashed through the support level of 3,000 points. Investors stampeded out of shares after a grim Black Monday sparked mayhem in global financial markets, but failed to prompt fresh rescue measures from Beijing. I think they are dumbfounded. And this now poses a risk to that sort of image of China forever rising. All index futures contracts slumped by their 10% daily limit for the second day, reflecting extremely bearish sentiment and pointing to darker days ahead. I spoke about this when I wrote that piece over the weekend. China roils the markets, I said. News out of China from the apocalyptic scenes in Tianjin would seem to be a premonition of what the world might look like in a dystopian future, through to the extreme volatility in the stock market and the stream of hardcore data which climaxed last week with the release of the Kaixing factory gauge August PMI, have sent the markets into a tailspin. And then I quoted an IMF official who said it's totally premature to speak of a crisis in China, and whenever I hear phrases like that I know it is a crisis. And I spoke about this on the 6th of July as well, when I said over in China the bull market is now being mauled by the bears. And I said, consider that there are more individual investors in the stock market than there are Communist Party members, and you will appreciate that this stock market crash represents probably the biggest political risk to the neo-totalitarian than Xi Jinping. Currency markets, Eric Hansader again, the US dollar just flash crashed. This was an event yesterday. Have a look at it. Dollar dropped against the yen, euro and Swiss franc, but soared against currencies, commodity producing currencies. It's a bit of a bifurcation, split personality at the moment. Let's go to the currency markets right now. Euro is back at 115.58. It's been all over the shop. Dollar index, last time I had a look, was below 94. Japanese yen, 119.50. Swissy, 0.9355. The pound, 157.90. Looking quite strong, actually. India rupee, 66.725. Aussie has been all over the place, back below 0.72. South Korean won 11.94.82. The Rial 3.55. I had that 4 target for a while back. Egyptian pound 7.83, and the rand 13.1766. Dollar index. Let me put up a 3-month chart. I think the drawdown is further to go. In point of fact, because I don't see the Fed now hiking in September. Euro dollar. I think this big spike we've seen has been driven out of China, because essentially the Europeans are their biggest trading partner. You devalue a currency, you have 2 choices. Either you mark the currency down against the dollar, or alternatively you buy some euros and spike it higher. Holger again, the only thing that rises on today's markets is fear. German fear index, the VDAX, jumps by 45% to the highest level since 2011. Let me put up that image as well. And then as Eric Hansader again, we've never seen GE bounce 8% several times in seconds, sometimes less than 1 second. Have a look at what he posted. Commodity markets, let me go back to what I said in November 2014 when I said the commodity super cycle is dead in the water. Bloomberg Commodity Index of 22 raw materials, from oils to metals, lost as much as 2.7% yesterday and touched the lowest level since August 1999. Just to give you a feel of how far back these prices have moved, how dramatically. It's being fueled by the large drop in the Chinese stock market today, which is making people nervous about the management of the Chinese economy. That's the key point about the management of the Chinese economy, which has direct implications for commodities. This moment when the market stops suspending its disbelief is seriously a dangerous one for policymakers. I wrote over the weekend, and I believe it applies. While we do not have enough information to assess all the details of official releases, we share the view that real GDP growth probably slowed more than reported in recent quarters, much more than reported. Gold, let's take a look at where that is, 1147.62. Do you remember I said 1150 was my rebound target? We obviously went higher than that, but we're back below that level now. Going back to crude oil, on the 10th of August, I said the meltdown is coming. Holger again, oil in free fall. Brent and WTI hit fresh 6-year lows on China angst and have a look at the graph. I'll put up a graph of WTI crude oil last trading around the 39.23 level. My target is 32.50. Emerging markets, the Turkish lira weakens as Erdogan officially declares a repeat election. That's a big mess, Turkey, and I'm not sure his political strategy is going to work out either. And then again, free-falling Russian ruble breaks beyond 70 as sell-off in oil continues. Let's move to Sub-Saharan Africa. CSIS tweeted an image on Bloomberg, strategic ports and power in the Indian Ocean. Have a look at that image. And you'll remember in August 2013 I wrote about the Indian Ocean, saying I have no doubt that the Indian Ocean is set to regain its glory days. And I described why it was so amazing previously, many centuries ago. It was as Professor Felipe Fernandez Amesto explains, that the precocity of the Indian Ocean as a zone of long-range navigation and cultural exchange is one of the glaring facts of history made possible by the reversible escalator of the monsoon. I have no doubt that the Indian Ocean is set to regain its glory days. China's dependence on imported crude oil is increasing, and the US's is interestingly decreasing. I said I'm also certain the eastern seaboard of Africa from Mozambique through Somalia is the last great energy prize in the 21st century. Delayed, I'm afraid. Therefore the control of the Indian Ocean becomes kind of decisive, and with control, China can be shut down quite quickly. A sine qua non of President Obama's pivot to Asia is US, NATO, and I should have added India, power projection over the Indian Ocean. Because I think India, as it were, will be subcontracted some of this responsibility. And on that note, let me put up a photograph of Ali, the navigator, who navigated us to Assini Island. Burundi forced detainees to sit in acid pools and used iron bars to torture opposition, says Amnesty. They took a 5-litre container full of sand, tied it to my testicles. They left it on me for more than an hour. I fainted. Good grief. South African all-share tumbled 2.85% yesterday. It's now down 4.29% year-to-date and at a December 2014 low. Dollar rand, last trading when I checked, but I haven't checked lately, 13.176. Look at yesterday's spike. That was a phenomenal outsized tail risk move if you ever wanted to see one. Egyptian EGX 30 crashed another 1.92%. That's fallen 25.45% this year, and it's really been creamed of late. MTN scraps early Nigeria debt payment amid currency shortage. This gives us a little bit of interesting insight, doesn't it? MTN has abandoned plans to repay early about $500 million of debt held in Nigeria, saying it can't get hold of dollars in the African wireless carrier's biggest market, so there's a shortage of dollars. We had looked to do the early resettlement, but currently we're not able to do so, said Nick Kershaw. In Nigeria, there is limited availability of the hard currency. Nigerian all-share fell 2.22% yesterday. It's down 15.705% year-to-date. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is down 4.068% in 2015. My interview yesterday with Bonnie Tunya was transcribed by CNBC Africa. And I said a number of things. I said China's data just doesn't stack up anymore. No one believes it. That moment when markets suspend disbelief is upon us now. And I think I'll hold steady to that. According to Satchu, this is why we're seeing commodities crashing. China's instability will particularly affect Africa as the continent's terms of trade with China, which amount to $220 billion, will move into space where China's exports will be cheaper and ours will be more expensive. I said oil is heading back to $32.50 on WTI. That's where the price was the day after President George Bush stood up on the USS, I can't remember whether it was George Washington, and said mission accomplished. And then I was saying, the only way the oil market can, this precipitous drop can be arrested is if Russia and Saudi Arabia decide to take 5 million barrels off each, but it's not going to happen. And essentially, I don't think Saudi Arabia is the price setter. I think it's the US. And I said inflation is the least of our worries, oil is the game changer, our single biggest expense item on the balance sheet, and look what's happened to the price. NSC Kenya reported first half profit after tax accelerated to 39.6%. Assets up 65.4%, other income up 7.9%, profit before tax up 22.3%, earnings per share are down 7.1%, that's because of the issuance of more shares. Increase in equity turnover by 6% to 213 billion for the 6-month period, but remember during the 6-month period where the capital gains tax controversy, so volumes was suppressed during that period, so this is actually a creditable outcome. And if you look at the moving average since the volume moving average in the last 8 weeks, it's gone even higher. TPS is to refurbish its properties in Kenya at a cost of 2 billion shillings. This is in Business Daily Africa. Signed a $20 million loan agreement with Proparco to support the refurbishment, redevelopment of its properties in Kenya. Nairobi Serena will undergo redevelopment and refurbishment commencing in year 2016 on a phased basis. The project will include new conference and banqueting facilities, refurbished bedrooms and public areas, the company added. Investments in other Serena properties in Kenya will continue to be implemented on an ongoing basis. The link for the share price data and the first half results, where sales were down only 1.47%, which I thought was quite creditable, although they reported a loss of 61 cents a share versus a profit of 13 cents a share the previous time. Currency translation differences surged 417%. Talked of a very challenging first half. East African portfolio recorded encouraging business levels in the corporate business segment, although bookings are for very short lead times. Talking about high profile events, hopefully supporting a rebound going forward. I did an interview with Mahmood, which was pretty in-depth, I thought, a little while ago. I put up that link. Mahmood is the managing director of Serena Hotels, and I'll put up a photograph. He's an old friend of my family and a wonderful fellow. And I'll put up another photograph of Hannah and her mother riding along the seashore at Lake Elmantaita, which is really a beautiful property that they have on Tom Delamere's property. I think they've leased it. It's really quite exquisite. There's, funnily enough, an interview also in Bloomberg where Tuva Mohunga, the general manager of Serena Beach Hotel, says business is still very low, 26% occupancy. With this, we can't continue. We've had to stop contractors and part-time staff. Number of foreign visitors in the country dropped 19% in the first half to 347,398. At least 516 people have died in terrorist incidents in Kenya since Westgate, according to Verisk Maplecroft. Mahmood, in another interview with Reuters, spoke of the rebound happening in the middle of next year. I think he's right. We were down in the south coast recently, and there was simply absolutely no one there. Let me put up a photograph of the Serena Hotel in Mombasa, which is a fabulous place and one I'll remember forever because a lot of my childhood was spent there on the weekend. Children play on an amusement train ride in heavy rain during the annual Camel Derby in Maralal. It's a photograph that was carried on the Guardian website yesterday. Kenya shilling 103.70, last topped 104 yesterday. Nairobi all shares down 10.1233%, fell 2.18% yesterday. Of course, we imported all that external volatility. It's just 0.39% above its 2015 low from the 5th of August. It will be a bearish pattern if we break through that, and we might today. NSE 20 is down 15.162% this year, and just 20 points above its 2015 low from the same date, the 5th of August. As I said, the markets lurched lower. A positive about yesterday's lurch lower was it was on very low volume, less than $3 million at a time when we've been trading huge volumes. So the sell side pressure was in fact light. Agricultural stocks continued to outperform the rest of the market. Safaricom, because of the number of foreign investors on its shareholder register, tends to import some volatility, and it did. It closed 4.33% lower yesterday. Kengen 1.84% lower to close at 8. Atlas Development and Support Services, this is the oil and gas sector, was down by its daily allowable maximum, which was 9.62%. The oil and gas sector in East Africa is in ICU at an oil price below $40 a barrel, I am afraid. Atlas is down 37.5% year to date, which makes absolute sense. Once again, thank you for stopping by.